All
Hi, how
right.
do you feel?
Hello, everyone. So we're on day three. I'm really excited today, actually. I have to share with you all that this is really going to be a session that I need to learn a lot on. Now, this particular special guest that I have that's coming on is somebody that has kicked my ass on multiple occasions, and we will be sharing some of that today. Just waiting for you guys to come in. Here she is, my very special guest for day three of my week-long social series, which is called Big Personalities in Small Places. My dear health and wellness expert, Sonia Jhas. Hey, darling.
Hello. Hi, how are you?
I am doing well.
You do not look like you have isolation face at all. Like I haven't washed my face in 6 days and you show up looking like this. Are we having the same experience or not?
I think, when in my generation, like we were brought up by our, mothers, where, if you stepped out of the bedroom and you didn't have your face on and you weren't sorted. I come from that generation. You were sent right back into that bedroom. So I figured
You
if I
better
have
shape
to
yourself up.
absolutely. So if I have to come out of my bedroom, for anything, and especially if I'm going to go live with you, you can
I
bet your
love it.
bottom dollar that this face is going to be on some,
I
some
love it.
shape
You
or
look
form.
beautiful. It is so lovely to see you. Thank you for putting your face on. You look extraordinary.
Oh my gosh. So thank you so much, Instagram family, for coming on day three, for our fabulous Facebook family for coming on day three. And I apologize again for yesterday where we weren't able to come live on Facebook. So we had to, put the recording on later in the day. So if you didn't get the opportunity to see day two with the fabulous health coach, Reiki master, teacher, yoga extraordinaire, fabulous woman, Tara Natalie. Go check that out on my Facebook page. Really, I want to get into this. There's so much that I want to ask you, Sonia, but before we do, for those people out there who aren't familiar with you, shame on them, first of all. Second of all, I think you deserve a proper introduction. So as you guys know, if you're just tuning in, I'm joined today by health and wellness expert and influencer, even though she hates that word influencer, but that's a whole other session. Sonia Jhas is someone that I've known personally since 2015, I believe. ANOKHI Spotlight TV is a lifestyle show that we started a number of years ago on YouTube, and Sonia was our wellness expert for that. And that's really the first time that I met Sonia. And I have to say that I was so impressed by her ability to be able to simply break down complicated and often, scary concepts around fitness, diet, nutrition, and, all of those things that people like myself, and I know there's a lot of you guys out there, are also, kind of tackling and battling and just trying to figure out how to kind of get a regime that makes sense for the kind of lifestyle that you have. I also want to say to you guys that in addition to that, she is also a recognized contributor for the likes of Huffington Post, National Post, Flair, and many national morning shows in Canada. She has consistently been ranked as one of Canada's leading wellness influencers, and I will be speaking with her, as I mentioned to you guys right off the top of this, about some disciplined communications. So for those of you guys like me, who are very challenged in certain areas of discipline. And I call it disciplined communication simply because I feel that there needs to be some communications as an individual that we have with all aspects of our lives. And I feel that fitness, nutrition, health, and wellness is no different. So for those of you who, like me, are challenged with eating too much food, binging, then going on these starvation diets, exercising only when you're being forced to exercise. This is really going to be a great session for you guys, because my girl Sonia is going to be kicking some ass today. That's all I have to say. She's got her headphones on. She's ready to go.
Let me know if this is any better. Are we good? Why are we paused? Honestly, I feel like my mother right now. Like, I'm not technically inept, and yet this is wildly confusing. Are we all good now?
I mean, we can see you. We can hear you.
We can hear you. That's all we need.
Okay, brilliant. Now, I just got the thumbs up from my tech guru, my son, Karam. So we are good to go. So we're just going to...
Amazing.
Brilliant. So we're going to just go straight into this, Sonia. So during this time, while we're all kind of stuck at home, it becomes even more difficult for us to figure out kind of what to do with our time. We are used to having schedules that are almost forced upon us in a good way, because we venture outside of the home and we go to work for about 8 to 10 hours a day. I mean, this is kind of most of the workforce. So, you know, that creates some kind of consistency around, you know, scheduling our time. Now that we're at home, most of us, time is very difficult to schedule. We are in a place where we have to shift our mindset around what are we going to be doing, you know, with our day. We feel like, and I know that, you know, a lot of people are sharing this with me. Please, I'd love for you to also share this with us as well, Sonia. People are treating every single day as if it was a weekend, getting up late, you know, eating when they like, chilling out, you know, watching Netflix, you know, gaming right now is like just crazy. I mean, the apps are making a ton of money, as you know, and health and wellness, fitness regimes, eating is all about having some sort of a cohesive system. Now, I know that's something I have learned from you, and it's very difficult to do that right now. We are kind of, especially me, I'm in a state of binge eating, wanting to veg out. I'm using this as an excuse to maybe not do anything. I want to kind of tackle this with you in stages, just because,
please.
You know, just because it really is a big animal, right? It's a multi-billion-dollar industry out there, and, you know, still we can't seem to be able to get ourselves sorted. So before we begin, I want to kind of talk a little bit around your journey. Like, I want to create context and perspective around who you are today as a health and wellness expert. You started in the business corporate realm, and then you had this kind of transformational journey that kind of brought you to where you are today. Let's kind of share that a little bit. Let's go into that.
Absolutely. I know, I like, even the word health and wellness expert is so confusing. Like, are you a doctor? Like, what does that even mean? And if you're not a doctor, like, are you even considered valid by the Indian community? All these questions and more. So fascinating. It was an interesting start for me, as you mentioned. I mean, once upon a time, I was a good little Indian girl with long hair in the corporate world, working as an executive at IBM. And that, you know, was just the natural path that I was kind of going down, because that's all I was ever taught to think was normal. You know, we got rid of the whole idea of doctor and engineer when we realized I was terrible at physics in high school. So when that was off the table, the only legitimate career I could have after that was like doing something really sort of tangible in the corporate world, and technology seemed like the right space to be in. And so, you know, I did that. I did my MBA, no red flags up until, you know, I'd kind of gotten married, settled down, bought a condo, you know, satisfied a lot of those standard ticky marks that Indian parents have for you and that you grow up thinking are, you know, going to automatically lead to happiness. And then you find yourself sitting there after you've achieved all these things being like, so when's the happiness part coming? Am I gonna like wake up one morning and feel different suddenly? How come I don't feel the way I thought I would feel at this stage of my life, where I had satisfied all of these things? And, you know, I just was starting to peel back the layers a little bit to be like, I'm waiting for this time where happiness is going to arrive. And if it's not here yet, what is going to do it for me? Instead of pursuing my PhD, which was also an option because I was like, what do you do when you don't know what to do? You get more education. I decided, in fact, to just kind of switch gears altogether and go on a bit of a personal journey. I mean, words like transformation and personal journeys were not quite as like catchy back then, so I didn't really realize that's what I was doing. But I had always been really sort of dissatisfied and bothered by my body since I was almost 9 years old. Like, I remember when I was in grade 4 thinking that I was fat, and that if only there was a way for me to look thinner, then I would be considered prettier, more beautiful, more attractive. And I don't know where those images and ideas came so early on. It's not like anyone had ever told me I was fat, and I wasn't born a particularly large child. I was just average, but there was something that started very early on for me that just led me to believe that I wasn't good enough as I was. And from 9 until 26, I sort of went on this really volatile journey where everything on the outside looked perfect and straightforward and easy. And I looked like every other kid that was growing up in an Indian household, like lying about talking to boys. But internally, I was really sort of battling being comfortable in my own skin. I developed anorexia when I was in high school. I went through a phase where I was bulimic. I had all the versions of binge eating disorder that you've talked about yourself, where you're either eating everything enough to feed a small village, or you're completely depriving yourself because that's the only way to pay for what you've done. And my relationship with exercise was also similarly quite complicated. I wasn't exercising for the purposes of health, but rather just to see if I could beat my body into submission, because then I would maybe be able to fit into a size 0. And I succeeded quite a bit. I, yo-yoed from a size 6 to a size 0 and everything in between. My wardrobe was filled with like every clothing size for every phase, depending on if I like had exams and knew that I was going to be stress eating, or if it was going to be like post exams and then I was going to be being hardcore again to like get myself to a new size. And when I was 26 and I had accomplished everything that I thought I wanted to accomplish, I just got to the point where I was so sick of my own shit. Like, I was just so tired of looking in the mirror and hoping for things to look differently, and constantly experiencing that quiet anxiety and discomfort that it's so quiet you don't even realize that it's there, because you're so busy accomplishing your life goals until your goals have been accomplished and the noise starts to get louder and louder, and then you're like, I can't stand being in my own head anymore. And if this is what my life is going to be about, constantly wishing I looked a different way, constantly punishing myself for doing things that felt natural and unnatural at the same time. I didn't want to do that anymore. And I was really concerned because the next ticky mark was going to be children.
Right.
And I thought that if I don't sort this out before I have a child, especially a girl, if I ever did, like, what would I be passing on? Like, how would I ever be responsible for setting the stage for health for somebody else if I couldn't stand what I looked and felt like? And so that's kind of where the onset started. Long story short.
So can I ask you right there, a couple of things I want to ask you is, what was that self-talk that you were beating yourself up with? Can you share some of that with us?
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't that the self-talk was angry and mean. I think that would have been easier to identify. My self-talk has never been overtly abusive, where I'm like, oh, like, you're not good enough and it's all terrible and you're terrible. And I would probably be using a lot more profanity if I had a sense of who was watching this, but I would be doing, a lot of very gentle shit talking is what I would call it.
Right.
It was like, you're good, but you're not quite good enough yet. You're fine. Nobody's saying you're ugly. You're just like not a pretty girl. You're not giant and like clinically obese, but like you've got a lot of padding on you and it doesn't look so good. Sure, your face is fine, but like you just have a little extra mass there. It was like this like gentle sort of criticism that wasn't overtly mean, unless you really started to kind of listen in and realize all of these sort of characterizations that you're making about yourself are very limiting, right? It's like when you hold yourself back from opportunities in life that have nothing to do with what you look like, because you're good, but so-and-so is probably better. You're fine, but you should probably not put yourself out there because it's silly. Like those limiting beliefs that you sort of don't realize are harsh, but they're in fact almost like protecting you from being disappointed. But when you actually peel back the layers, you're like, I'm just being a bitch to myself all the time. Like I'm actually just being mean. I'm criticizing all elements of who I am by constantly telling me that who I am and what I am is not good enough. And that if I can only get there, wherever there is in this future state, whether it's a next degree, a next job, you know, a smaller body, prettier face, some sort of betterment of what is there right now, then I'll achieve happiness, then I'll be good enough, and then I can settle down and relax. And obviously I could never settle down and relax because the needle just kept moving forward, right? It was like, oh, first lose 2 pounds and then you'll feel good about yourself. Okay, now it has to be 5. Okay, 5 is not good enough. Now it has to be 10. It's that constant pursuit of perfection that just was driving me nuts mentally. And I never realized because I was too busy trying to get 95% in all of my classes and then get into the high school and then get into the university and then get the dean's list and then get the job. It's only after I accomplished all of that that I actually started to tune in and realized that every time I look in the mirror, all I was doing was giving myself homework about what I could improve. Every time I sat back and I ate something, it was either you're not doing something right and therefore you should feel guilty, or you are doing something right and can we be even more hardcore? Because if you can be even more hardcore, then that means you really want it. And if you really want it, then you're not average, right? It was this fear of being average all the time, wanting to be extraordinary and not knowing how to do it from a place of self-love instead of self-hate.
So at what point in that kind of, you know, dialogue that you had with yourself, and I'm kind of hearing you say that you kind of self-inflicted, you know, a place of purgatory for yourself. You kind of was in this place between heaven and hell, which, you know, a lot of us call earth. You know,
right?
Right. So you allowed yourself to be human, like to always kind of wonder, you know, if you were too much on one side, was it really going to be the right mix for you? When did you realize that you had to kind of actually construct what that cocktail of ingredients were going to be to create the perfect mix for you and to pull yourself out of purgatory and find a place in heaven that you'd created for yourself?
Totally. Yeah, that's a great question. You know, I can't say that there was an epiphany moment. You know, when you kind of sit here years later and you reflect on it, it's easy to sort of see how everything snowballed. But it really was a very gentle sort of unlearning of everything that I knew. You know, when I started to go inward, it wasn't because I was trying to heal myself. I was really just trying to get to a place of balance when it came to my body and my body alone. So I started by reteaching myself the fundamentals of fitness and nutrition because frankly, I had spent my entire youth Googling the secrets of fat loss. And there was a lot of convoluted information that I was operating out of, right? I knew the stuff and yet I had tried every single fad diet in the entire world. When I used to get desperate enough, I used to kind of retreat back to things that I knew were not healthy for me, but I would just do it in the short term because I wanted to like quickly get skinny to fit into the dress. And so when I kind of—
How do you know me? How do you know me?
How do I know you? I know, right? Because we all secretly want to just like quickly get skinny for the dress. And then we're like, and then we'll keep it forever somehow. And then it never happens. So we've all been there, Raj. You are not alone. But I think the thing is, it's one of those things where when you sit back and you start to relearn the fundamentals and you really approach it not from a quick fix standpoint, but from I am now laying the foundation for a new way of living, and this will not lead to the results that I want overnight, but rather in a year from now, if I can sit back and sort of sit in peace with my body, knowing that I'm not taking shortcuts, knowing that I'm not doing things that are unhealthy, knowing that I'm not doing this just for the aesthetics, then maybe I can actually just accept who I am and where my body is at. And when
But that is so hard, Sonia. It's so hard to sit there and say that, you know, in a year from now, I'm going to be where I need to be. But it really is the conversation that you need to have with yourself. It's similar to, yes, it's similar to any other skill that you learn, right? Like nothing gets just learnt overnight. And I think that's the big shift that we need to make in our head that I'm hearing you actually say here, is that you got to put yourself to task the way you would learning any other skill in life, right? You got to get the education. You've got to put the work in. You have to have the patient, consistent mindset to keep, you know, stabbing at it bit by bit, right?
Absolutely. You need to actually sit back and say, I may not look any different. I may not actually feel any different, but I'm going to now come at the journey from a different place for the long haul, because I can't stand myself anymore. And the reality of the situation is this: you're not going to change until you can't stand yourself anymore, right? Nobody, I mean, nobody when you're in this place of life is constantly looking for more sort of like self-work to do, to sort of unlayer and dig deeper, especially when it comes to your body. It's just not the heavy lifting that we want to do. It feels too challenging. It's too much of a mental game. And I don't think that people really want to do it. Those that do it because you can't divorce yourself. You just cannot get out of this relationship.
Right.
And so the only way through is to actually make it through, where when you come out on the other side, you're like, you know what? I'm okay. I'm hopefully happy. And I'm always on the journey, but I'm now on my side as opposed to being at war with myself.
Right.
And I completely agree with you that it's so easy to sit here and be like, well, you just need to come at the journey differently and like love yourself. Because as long as you love yourself, then like, it's so good and you can like find your way through anything. Absolutely not. Right. It's terrible. It is soul sucking. It is challenging. It is hard. The mental aspect of fitness and nutrition is the challenge. Right. Execution is actually pretty straightforward, but it's really sort of respecting how hard the journey is. And I think the fact that we all keep buying into the narrative that it's easy is a problem. Mm-hmm. Right? Like we have somehow believed that we're the only ones that struggle with it, that it's something to be ashamed of, that we're the only ones that are having a problem, and that like every other person has sorted out their version of it and they're healthy and that's all fine, and that there's something wrong with you because you find this to be your biggest pain point.
Right.
But if you look around, and there's a reason, as you said, that this is a $1 billion industry. It's everybody's biggest pain point.
Yeah.
It takes everybody iteration after iteration after iteration to get to a place where they are finally like, most of my thoughts all day long are not consumed by if I'm doing better or doing worse, and if I should be happy with myself or if I should be terrified about the fact that I'm suddenly eating my way to a bigger size.
So if you're not picking sides, right, yep, which is what we do, right?
Which is what we do.
Yeah. What should we be doing?
I think here's what I've learned through my own personal journey and through helping a lot of other people. One, before it's even about sort of playing the mental game, you actually have to take the time to learn information. Mm-hmm. Like most people don't know how many calories they should be eating on a daily basis. Nobody knows how much physical activity they actually need to do in terms of their own specific body to build muscle and therefore shed fat by allowing themselves to support their metabolism as opposed to just sort of getting that metabolic slowdown that typically happens. We tend to come at this journey from a place of like winging it and hoping for the best, which is, as you said, not something we would ever do when it comes to anything else. You don't like wing a language and hope for the best and then be like, whatever, I'm going to go and travel and like, that'll probably do the job. I mean, you do in a way, but for the most part, when you're really trying to take something seriously in your life, you invest the time in either getting the help for real from an expert,
right,
or you actually educate yourself so that you are operating from a place that is anchored in science, because like this is fundamentally science. It's not a lot of other stuff. It is science and then all the other stuff, right? But we like seem to think that we can just guess our way through it and like, oh, I don't know, I like ate a Snickers bar, but like Snickers isn't bad for you because there's peanuts in it and peanuts have healthy fat. So like healthy fat shouldn't be bad. And like I heard something about healthy fat being good for you. And so like technically I guess maybe I'm doing something good for myself when I'm maybe doing something bad for myself, and somebody else being like, dark chocolate is good, dark chocolate is bad, coconut oil is good, coconut oil is bad. I'm not saying that you need to become a nutritionist yourself or a fitness expert yourself, but like why we think we can just guess our way through it. And then we berate ourselves for not getting the results that we want.
Right.
Or the results that other people have when they are getting help from experts or have become the experts themselves for their own bodies, I think is an unfair comparison game. Right, so you have to start by laying a foundation of understanding what is weight loss, what is healthy weight loss, what is science-based weight loss.
Yeah.
Of those things, what are you willing to actually do to accomplish that weight loss? Because there's a lot of things that you could do that you probably are not willing to do. And there are versions of things that you are probably willing to do, but knowing what is required, and then also knowing realistically who you are and what you actually would like to sign up for is important. Because if I was to tell you, you need to eat chicken and salad for all of your meals and wake up at 4 a.m. every morning to lose weight, and like do that for 3 months and you'll probably drop 20 pounds. Is that something you want to do? Do you want to eat meals that taste like cardboard? Do you want to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning, or do you actually just like sleeping? Mm-hmm. What do you want to do to get the body that you want is an important question once you've understood the fundamentals.
So is that what you did?
Weight loss.
So is that what you did, Sonia? I mean, you were motivated by the fact that you knew that at some point in the near future that you wanted to be a parent, and that you knew that whole nurturing aspect was extremely important to you to make sure that you got that right. So, take me that part of your journey.
Let me take you back to that part, because I will say that it wasn't some novel thing. It wasn't that I was doing this for the next generation of Jhas's at the time. I was scared about getting pregnant because I was like, yo, if I can't even handle my body when it's this size, imagine I pack on 60 pounds on top of this. Like, I'm going to be rotting in my own skin, have a baby, and then be like totally in the wrong headspace to be able to handle myself and handle a child. So there was that piece of it. But I will say that the major piece of it was, how do I layer in elements that are important to me in my life that I can respect myself for? So as opposed
there's the magic word.
Exactly. Respect myself for, right? Because I had done
again, girlfriend. Say it again.
Myself. It really did come down to that, right? Like, I had done all of the different versions of coming at the problem, and from the outside, nobody was the wiser, right? Nobody knew if I was bulimic or not. Nobody knew if I was anorexic or not. Nobody knew if I was over-exercising. Nobody knew if I was eating like shit. Nobody knew if I ate an entire cake in one sitting. This was not about what other people knew. Other people just knew what I looked like. And frankly, I looked fine all the time. Slightly bigger, it was okay. Slightly smaller, it was okay. Nobody had any idea except for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for me at the time when I decided enough was enough, it was because I couldn't stand the fact that I was the one doing that to me. And that I wanted to be skinny so badly that I would eat 5 saltine crackers in a day.
Wow.
Like I didn't respect myself anymore. And I think for me, the journey really began when I was like, I don't care what size I'm going to be,
mm-hmm.
but I want to nourish my body. And that doesn't mean I'm never going to eat junk food again, but I want to be able to eat food in a way that doesn't terrify me. And if that means that I have to be bigger, then I have to be bigger. And that's okay. Maybe I'm not meant to be a size 0. I also was like, I want to exercise because I believe in feeling strong. I want to work with my body and build it up for the long journey ahead, rather than being like, oh, I like exercise 6 times a day for 2 months because I wanted to be skinny. Then I didn't move and was virtually sedentary for 6 months, and then on and off and on and off. I couldn't buy into my own stories, I think, is the issue anymore.
Right.
And the idea of self-respect, I think, was really bothering me when I didn't realize that that's what the issue really was.
So I love that you just said that. So, you know, you decided that you just didn't want to buy into your stories anymore. That has got, you know, that has got to be probably the most single important statement that any human being needs to say to themselves about any challenge that they're going through in life.
100%.
Is that I'm just not going to buy the bullshit that I'm feeding myself.
I'm not going to buy my bullshit anymore.
Yeah,
100%. And I will say that it's that decision that changed the entire direction of my entire life, right? Like, it's silly to say that by going inward to conquer my health and wellness, I changed my life, because obviously good things came of it. Right. But I don't even mean that it changed the way I look and changed the way I felt about myself. It changed my entire inner narrative that led me to quit my corporate job, pursue my passion, cut my hair, all the things that really sort of unlayered the mess to cultivate my own authenticity and bring it to the surface in a unapologetic way, all stemmed from the fact, as you said, that I was unwilling to buy my own bullshit anymore. And if I was unwilling to buy my own bullshit in the health and wellness space, and I was able to take it and stay the course and get to that point where I could sit back and be like, holy shit, Sonia, you're actually a different person, physically and mentally, because of this journey. Well, then there was no holding back after that, right? After that, it was, well, then I owe it to myself to unlayer in all aspects of my life, to give myself the same room that I did in health and fitness in all other areas, to design a life that feels like it's me.
So let me ask you something here about that. One of the fundamental discipline doctrines is for us to be able to figure out, in the plethora of mass communications and mass content and resources that are available at our fingertips, is to be able to kind of, you know, sift through it all, filter out the things that don't serve us, and to be able to pick out the pieces to make up that jigsaw puzzle that makes the perfect version of who we are as an individual. That sounds like it's a simple scenario, but it really isn't. I know that you've done that. I know that you're still on the journey of doing that, as am I. So
always on the journey. We'll forever be on the journey, right?
Yes.
Like, I think that's also the other piece of it that both you and I understand after going through our individual journeys so far, is that once upon a time, I thought there was an end point. Once upon a time, I thought I was going to arrive somewhere, unpack, and live there. That is not a concept that exists in my life anymore. I don't ever believe that I will arrive anywhere and then unpack and live in that space. Right. The journey will go on until I'm dead. And if the journey isn't going on until I'm dead, then I'm doing something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
right? Because we as human beings are constantly evolving. Our bodies are evolving internally and externally. Our minds are evolving. It is going to be a journey for the long haul. And I think when you embrace that idea, when you recognize that this is going to be your life until you're dead, which we all know.
Right.
But until you really sit back and realize it's just you in your mind until you're dead, you, I think, then get to the point where you're like, okay, well then how am I going to be on my side and be there as my own support mechanism, as my own cheerleader, as my own coach, as my own drill sergeant, as all the versions of myself that I can be, as best as I can be, because it's just me and me until the end.
Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about some of the techniques, some of the places that you tapped into to kind of create that version of you that makes sense for you to be comfortable and to live in consistently. Because right now we are really, really amplified with, a lot of time that we can probably make use of in some manner to go through this journey that you've gone through. Yeah, right? I mean,
yeah, we can.
I'm really nervous to come out of this situation with the COVID-19. We have at least another month where, doctors are saying that we're going to go into more of a peak situation. We haven't gotten there yet in Toronto.
No, we haven't.
So we know that we've got like at least another month, if not more, of sitting at home and needing to be able to make sense of how we're going to utilize our time. And food and fitness is a huge, huge part of that. Absolutely. I want to ask you, how do we get around that? I mean, binging, vegging, it's so much more amplified now than everyday living. And in everyday living, we have challenges with this.
Agreed.
So can we start maybe with the food side of things, and then I want to go into the fitness side of things, and then how do we actually put all that together?
Sure. I'm going to be super annoying right off the bat. Right. Super annoying. And say, there is no one-stop solution here. I could sit here and be like, so guys, here's the regime you're going to follow. So follow it, and then you're going to come,
Sonia.
You're going to come out of COVID-19 sexier than ever, and we'll all be like skinny and fit for summer. I would love.
I want that version. I want that version.
I know. I would love to sell you that, but can't, because the great thing about this time is that it really brings to surface all of your shit. Mm-hmm. It's terrible and it's uncomfortable and it's disgusting in so many ways. But if you choose not to turn away, and if you choose not to numb yourself, and if you choose not to stay on social media 19 out of 24 hours a day, and if you choose not to constantly be inundated with information that is not productive for you right now, and you actually sit back and watch how you operate during this time, you will gain a lot of data.
Right.
Do you want to binge eat? Why? When? When does it often happen? Does it happen consistently every day? Does it happen when something happens? Does it happen when you tune into the news? Does it happen every night at 8 p.m.? Is it boredom? Are you sad? Are you lonely? Do you hate your husband? Are your kids driving you nuts? When do you want to overeat? And I feel like we're so quick to want to get into solution mode. We never collect data.
Right.
Who here is making an Excel spreadsheet of their COVID-19 journey, logging what it is that they're eating, the good, the bad, and the ugly, just so that in a couple weeks they could be like, that's like a really interesting pattern. I didn't realize I do that. I didn't realize that every time I eat an entire box of Oreos, the UNICEF commercial comes on before and I feel sad and cold and dead in my heart. So I go and eat something. Like, people don't know why they're doing what they're doing. They just know that they're doing it. And I think
we have to figure that out first then. So we have to figure out why we're doing it, like looking at, you know, the time of day or the type of food that we're binging, you know, all of these different things.
Absolutely. I'm not saying that you need to be your own. I'm not saying that you need to be your own therapist. And I don't think you're necessarily going to come out with black and white answers. I don't think that every day is the same and you're going to be like, oh, look at this amazing trend that I've seen.
Yeah.
But I do think that we're so afraid of looking at our bad habits head on that we sort of lump it all into this weird bucket. Like, oh, I've just become this like lazy sloth person who just like is binging and not exercising. And I'm like so shitty now because of COVID-19. But we don't actually sit back and be like, okay, like what is our problem though? Like when does the problem even happen?
Yeah.
Is it happening every day? Is it happening all the time? Am I just constantly binging? Am I binge eating so much because I've convinced myself that on Monday I'm going to start again and it'll be a clean slate. So I should eat it all now because on Monday I'm never going to be able to eat again. Is that what I'm doing? See?
That is totally me. But can I ask you, let me ask you something, Sonia. So, you know, and I know that there's a lot of people that are in the same boat as me and perhaps this will be helpful. I actually love to eat food. It's like literally, it's like that simple. Like there's no drama around food for me. I don't hate food. I don't have a love-hate relationship with it. You know, I just really love to sit down and enjoy a great meal. And a part of that for me is not having the discipline. Again, I come back to that word because I feel it's so important. I don't have the discipline around how much to eat when. You know what I mean? Like, so if I feel like having a chocolate bar, or I feel like having a bag of chips, right? I mean, I have it because I feel like it, as opposed to having some sort of concept in my mind that, okay, if I have this now, what I should be doing to kind of counteract that. Like, I don't do that. And I know that that's something that you've talked to me about, that, you know, Raj, if you can eat these things, but you got to then have a plan for the fact that, you know, that you just that you did this. I'm not going to say put yourself through this. That's the wrong word.
I mean, I think
so can we go there?
Yeah, I think
the reality. Talk to us about that a little bit.
Yes, it's. I don't think it's about, okay, I ate the bag of chips, so now I have to punish myself because I ate the bag of chips. Or if I ate the bag of chips, now I have to run more. Or if I ate the bag of chips, now I have to suddenly exercise, because then that is also an unhealthy relationship. You shouldn't have to work off what it is that you ate as some sort of punishment. However, as I said before, calories do matter. It is important that you have a sense, roughly, around how many calories you should be taking in. Now, eating an entire bag of Ruffles chips, like the big kind, sure, that'll set anybody back unless you're like a, 200-pound football player.
Right.
Knowing how to portion out your treats because you enjoy something is difficult for most people. It really is. It's difficult, but it doesn't require that much.
Tell us what it requires, because
they give you the information at the back of the bag. They give you the information everywhere. Calories are disclosed everywhere. And I'm not suggesting that now you spend the rest of our time in isolation counting calories, but you should have a general sense around roughly how much you should be eating calorically every day.
So does it matter what those calories are?
It doesn't actually matter what those calories are in the strictest of senses. Science will say calories in versus calories out. You need to be in a deficit for weight loss. Now, fat loss and all those sorts of things and how exercise comes into play, it is more complicated. But if you really want to be like bare bones about it, why do all of these other diets work? Intermittent fasting, keto, all these other gimmicky sounding things. Why do they work? They work primarily because they are keeping your caloric intake in check, right? Intermittent fasting, it shortens down the window that you can eat. Typically, people can't eat as much in 8 hours as they would in 16 hours. And therefore, without counting calories, they are bringing their caloric intake down, usually enough. Keto, same thing, keeps you full with fat and protein. You tend to be more satiated. You tend to be full longer. You tend to eat less junk. Therefore, again, without thinking about it, your caloric intake is smaller.
Right.
So you have to find ways of figuring out what your version of balance is. Look, I'll give myself as an example.
Right. Go.
It has taken me a very, very long time to get to a place where moderation is something that works for me.
Mm-hmm.
I find, even now, for myself, while at home, moderation is complicated
Because
it can just easily snowball. As you said, I like the taste of food.
mm-hmm.
I like to enjoy snacks. While we're watching stuff on Netflix after 2 kids have gone to bed and it's 9 o'clock and I'm exhausted,
Yeah.
would it be convenient to nibble on something? Absolutely. Would I probably eat the whole bag? I would. And then I'd convince myself that I'll start again tomorrow,
Yeah.
and that would be what it is. But I don't want to play that game with myself. I just don't. I've done it for too many years. I don't want to do the I'll start again tomorrow. Tomorrow never comes, and even if it does come, it doesn't stay because it's middle of the week. I'm the mastermind at convincing myself why the tomorrow should be a different tomorrow, because it's 3 weeks into April, May 1st is coming soon. It's Monday, but it's not the first Monday of the month, so the Monday doesn't count. Like, I'm excellent at playing mind games with myself when I want to eat something and I'm not supposed to. So for me, one of the things that I have found.
That's why we get on, darling.
That's why we do.
We're the same woman when it comes to food.
Totally. So for me, it has been years of experimenting, yes, and it has been years of refining. But during this phase in specific, I am mandating for myself
Mm-hmm.
that I follow 16 and 8, that I'm fasting for 16 hours and that I'm eating for 8 hours. During those 8 hours, I'm not limiting myself from anything. If I want to eat a bag of chips, I will eat a bag of chips. If I want to eat an entire cake, I will eat an entire cake. Now, I don't want to.
So do you feel this is okay? Okay.
I don't want to, because for me,
mm-hmm.
after fasting 16 hours, I am not in a taste bud driven place.
Right.
I am not in tune with food texture the way I normally am.
Yeah.
I'm not in tune with oral fixation the way I can be. I'm not craving the way I can often be, whether it's mentally driven or just because I want the taste of something.
Yeah.
And so for me, 16 and 8 is not because I'm a firm believer in intermittent fasting. It's because for me, mentally,
mm-hmm.
it allows me 2 things. 1, it puts me in a frame of mind where I'm not taking any food off the table. Okay. So if I want to indulge, I'm allowed to, and it's not considered a no-no, so I haven't done something wrong, therefore need to be punished for.
Mm-hmm.
And 2, because I'm staying disciplined with the timing of it, and I don't waver. I don't ever waver. Like, that is like mandatory for me. I don't care what anybody else is eating in the house. I don't care what's happening. I will make it to 16 hours. That is my only condition for myself.
Okay. So
I will not waver.
So what I'm hearing here, Karen, how much time do we have? Because I have so much I want to talk to Sonia.
We can do this again. I promise.
We're still going to have to do this again.
I can live.
How much time do we have?
Probably like a bit over, around 10 minutes.
About 10 minutes. Okay, we're going to do this. So here's something that I heard that you said that I feel that everybody needs to hear during this time when we're sitting at home and food is so easily accessible.
It is.
And that is to pick one thing that you should be committed to doing.
One thing.
For you, it is sticking to the time that you know that you should be eating versus the time that you shouldn't be. That's what you're doing.
That's my one thing.
Okay, so that's your one thing. So you're not saying that should be the one thing everyone should do, but it's the one thing that's working for you right now.
It's the one thing that's working for me right now, more so than anything else. Now, I will say that I'm exercising at home.
Yeah.
But I have not mandated a weekly schedule.
Okay.
I'm trying to listen to my body. I'm still coming out of post-baby. I'm trying to manage building muscle and fat loss at the same time, very, very slowly to protect breast milk, all sorts of complications, et cetera, et cetera. So I am exercising, and that is an important thing for me. So if I was to say, like, what is number two? Number two right now is absolutely exercise. But I don't have like a Raj, if I didn't work out 5 days this week, then the exercise didn't count and it's useless and I'm out, right?
So what would you tell the everyday person who's at home okay, so there's two scenarios here. There's people that are used to fitness. It's an incredibly important part of their life, right? They go to gyms, they go to classes, and it's an integral part of kind of their lifestyle. They can't do that right now. So that's one type.
They can at home if they want to. It's up to them.
Okay, so we're gonna go there. Now then there's the other type of person that doesn't really exercise, not really into it, but this is now an opportunity where we have time to figure out how we're gonna have a relationship with our physical health.
Yeah.
So those two scenarios, let's talk about them.
Those two scenarios are very real.
Okay.
And I think, as with my earlier comment, where it is important to embrace the journey for the long haul.
Yeah.
I think similarly.
And not just this time, not just.
I'm talking about, I was talking about journey for the long haul, like until we're dead.
Okay.
In life later.
Okay.
Not because of COVID-19. That just sounded really morbid. But I feel like the same needs to be said about this time. I think there's a lot of people that are under the illusion that we're going to be like walking the streets and going back to life as normal next week. And as somebody who has a husband who is a doctor, and is sort of really abreast of the information, this is not a short-term thing. We're not going to be coming out of this phase anytime soon. And so I think in the beginning, it's all cute, right? Where everybody's like, and then I'm like binging, and it's like Netflix, and I'm like, oh, it's such a nice break from working out, or it's such a nice time to work out 6 times a day. Like whatever extreme version that people first sort of gravitate towards when a phase like this comes on is natural, right? Because we're all having a reaction mentally and physically to this like new trauma that we're experiencing. But then we get into, different phases through the journey. And soon we're going to be coming up on the phase where, a month will be under our belts.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll still see that there's another 2 or 3 months to go at least.
Right.
And so then we're looking at 4 months in total. And that idea that we don't like working out from home because we need a group X class and we need to do something because we like need to physically go to the gym, that narrative will probably have to change.
Right.
And those people that are like, I don't even want to work out ever. Like, forget it. I've never even worked out a day in my life and I have no intention to. Again, might work because they're not really missing something.
Mm-hmm.
But the food might become enough of an issue that they either have to, or they might actually just become so uncomfortable with the isolation.
Yeah.
The exercise will be a tool that they decide to layer in for mental health purposes, and just because we're not going to be able to leave our homes anymore, right? Like, I think there are different reasons that people will have to move from the current place that they're in right now, potentially unwillingly.
Yeah.
But I think right now it's okay because we're in the short-term view, right? Like, we're still making memes about COVID. It's still like kind of cute and kind of funny. Everybody's like still sort of not excited, but there's a lot of amplification right now.
Right.
At some point soon, we're all going to settle in to like, shit, this is just our new normal.
Right.
And looking at new normal is then going to require you to be like, okay, well then in 6 months from now, where do I want to be? And I don't mean, do you want to be your best self and do you want to learn 6 languages during this time and set up an entire online business and then be like, oh my God, I was so productive during COVID. I don't believe in that either. I don't think that's necessary. I think that's crazy, but fine. I applaud people for being productive and I'd like to be productive myself as well. But I think productive in a way that is looking at what do you value? How are you going to do that for yourself during this rather unnatural time where your old habits are no longer going to serve you probably?
Right.
And
that's the fundamental point here.
Yeah. Can you slowly build it in? Slowly. Like when I came back from having a baby, obviously, and I was postpartum.
And we've got 2 minutes, Sonia.
Got 2 minutes. I'm going to end here and then we're going to do this again another time.
Yes, absolutely. We're going to do this again in a month to see if everything that you said
I hope so.
Still stands.
Yes, please. Please. And you need to see if I'm still doing all the things that I say I'm doing. But
I already know that you will be.
The thing is, like, post baby, I relearned this again, and it's the most recent lesson. You know, it was scary for me to come out of a pregnancy where I hadn't been able to exercise for a very long time. And at some point in time, because the baby was trending too small, had been given orders to just like eat as much as I possibly could. And I'd gotten used to that. And this time around, I gained 60 pounds. Last time around, I gained 35. This time I gained 60.
Wow.
So 3 months after having the baby, I'm like, oh God, I have to somehow one day feel comfortable in my body again, whatever that means.
Mm-hmm.
But how am I going to do it? I have to change how I'm going to be eating, and I have to start exercising. But what does that even mean? Because there's such a long journey ahead.
So what is that one takeaway?
Exactly that. The one takeaway was, it is such a long journey ahead. Long journey.
So you need a relationship.
You need a relationship with your health, and start by doing one workout this week. Just one. Make it 10 minutes. Dance in your room if you have to. If physical activity is a thing that you want to start layering in, don't make it punishment. Don't do 7 days a week this week. Don't be like, oh, if I'm doing it 2 times a day for 7 days this week, then I'm totally cured of my issues and I'm going to be so hardcore from now on. Pick 2 days this week, 2 out of 7 days, and say, I'm going to move my body. I'm going to make it not suck. And if it doesn't suck, maybe next week I'll make it 3. Maybe the following week I'll keep it at 3, and move like that. So easy to make a small incremental progress. And I hope that's what you guys do.
Oh my gosh. You know, you've been such a pleasure, sweetheart. I mean, I could go on forever talking to you. You have so much
nice
knowledge.
To you.
Oh my gosh. So basically my 2 takeaways from this are, from a food perspective, you need to pick that one thing that you will absolutely unequivocally do. And
it can be as simple as drinking 2 liters of water a day. That's as simple as it can be.
And then from a exercise perspective, don't beat yourself up about it. Literally pick something that is manageable and be consistent with managing just that.
Until you feel like you want to do more.
Yeah.
You feel like it, and then do it.
I love you. Thank you so much for your time. Cannot wait to chat with you in a month's time to see where we're all at.
You guys are doing great.
Mwah. Love you.
Bye.